Hey everybody, today I'm talking about my top 10 hidden gem board games. So the criteria I've used to evaluate these games is I've used Board Game Geek as a bit of a template really, and it looks at how many owners there are of each of these games. In these examples, all of these have less than or fewer than 1,500 kind of owners. So in that ballpark, so not many people are owning these games. I don't really see them in anyone's collections. I never see anybody playing them, that kind of thing. But they're all really solid games that I do enjoy quite a bit. And I thought they would have been much more popular than what they are. And I think they deserve to be more popular and more spoken about. So let's get started at number 10. So at number 10, I have Mammoth by Queen Games. This one is a very kind of family-friendly game about trying to collect these different items to get victory points. So pretty standard fare there, a very simple set collection game. But the thing I love about this game is the way you actually gather those goods in the first place, because it's got this very primitive caveman theme, and where you have a bunch of these objects in the middle of the table. So you've got like your meat chunks, and you've got your kind of bonfires and things like this. And the idea is that you can take as many items as you want from the center and put it in front of you, and that's going to be your kind of hoard for this round scoring. But then the next person can either take another big chunk from the center, or they can take your bunch of loot that you've just collected off you, minus one of those items, and then put that one item they've ignored back into the center of the table. So there's this constant jockeying for position as people are just kind of tinkering, trying to work out exactly what they're happy with, until eventually everybody settles with what they're happy with. And then a number of things are assessed, such as I said, collecting different items, trying to collect all these different animals for endgame scoring, trying not to be the player with the fewest amount of something. Very standard set collection things, but that one twist of how you gather these resources is really compelling, and I'm surprised I've not seen this in anything else. So I do really appreciate games that do something a bit different to everything else out there, and I think Mammoth did a great job of that. As I said, I think a lot of family weight gamers, people who like these kind of gateway level games, should really take a look at Mammoth, because I think they could get a lot of fun out of this one. And again, this has all the kind of tools that these popular games seem to have, but for some reason or another, Mammoth has gone very much under the radar and has kind of fallen into that hidden gem category for me. So certainly worth taking a look at. This one is Mammoth. At number 9, I have Pyramids. So Pyramids is a game by pretty famous designer Matthew Dunstan. This one is a game with, again, some quite interesting mechanisms in there. I think this one accommodates 2 to, I think maybe even 5 players. And you are trying to basically choose one of these roles by these different god cards or these tiles, and you're going to collect these tiles. And these tiles are going to have some quite important information on them, because it's going to give you priority at drafting cards, the lower number you choose, but also going to give you the ability to do less with your turn. So there are kind of 3 scoring criteria in the game. You've got your pyramid, which you're adding to every turn, and the idea is you're trying to match up all these different coloured stones and trying to get points for your biggest kind of collection of those stones that are touching each other. You've got the obelisks, which you're trying to get the same colour in every single layer on those obelisks. And you've also got a crypt as well, where you are trying to have the most discarded cards of a certain colour to get endgame scoring. But the idea is you can either choose to get priority in order to get the set of cards that you want, if you want a particular item, or you can maybe give yourself a lot less autonomy in the cards that you get to pick, but you get to do more with your turn. So, if you go first, you only get to add to your pyramid, but if you go last, you get to add your pyramid, your obelisk, and your crypt. But if you go in the middle, you probably only get to do your pyramid and your obelisk, or your pyramid and your crypt. So I love that idea of having to go first and getting a lot of say on what you get, or having to go last, getting loads of actions but not getting not getting much say on what you get in the first place. That itself is really cool. It has a nice puzzly element to it as you're trying to line up all these bricks, trying to get everything linked together. Really satisfying gameplay. And again, not much I can criticise about this game, because I think it comes together really well in a nice, simple, compact game. Loads of variability in the cards that you get in this one. And some really interesting kind of routes you can go down and getting points as well. So a really solid filler game that I'm surprised isn't in more people's collection, because it is so pleasant, it's so accessible, yet still really engaging with that core tile drafting mechanism, which I absolutely love. So that is Pyramids at number 9. At number 8, I have Mask of the Red Death. Now, Mask of the Red Death is a really unique game that I've not seen anything like. So this one matches or merges simultaneous card play with deduction and programming. And the idea is that we are trying to collect as much information about where this Red Death is going to be at certain times throughout the night. And we're trying to navigate our kind of party goer, because everybody's got their own little character with the miniature. And you're trying to work out where the death is going to be at each of these times in order to try and avoid them when that clock strikes midnight. Sounds a bit out there, and it is a bit out there, but the game mechanisms themselves are pretty clean and simple. So I love the fact that once it's time to go, when it gets to midnight, you are mapping out on your little rondel where you're going to go. You know, I'm going to go clockwise, then I'm going to go anti-clockwise, then I'm going to stay where I am, then I'm going to go clockwise again. And then you are basically revealing cards from this Red Death deck, and he's going to be going, this death figure is going to be going from area to area, eliminating players who've not worked out the puzzle properly. And again, the last man standing with the most popularity is going to be the winner. Really interesting game. I'd love to see something like this go out there again. I said, great visuals, amazing artwork, great miniatures, really characterful, bright, vibrant board. I do not understand why this game is not more popular than it is. But if you do have a gaming group where you're consistently playing with 5 or 6 players, and you like your deduction, then this one is certainly one to check out because it's a lot of fun. And again, it got a lot of things that it does differently to almost everything out there on the market. So that is Mask of the Red Death at number 8. At number 7, I have The Big Score. Now this one is a push your luck and drafting game, so another mixing of strange mechanisms. This one is broken into 2 very distinct phases, and the idea is that we're supposed to be these kind of bank robbers, initially doing these smaller heists and eventually doing the big heists on this kind of the great big bank. And the first part of the game is based on card drafting, where everybody's going to have a hand of cards, and those cards are going to show different kind of specialists. So you've got like your getaway drivers, you've got your hired muscles, you've got your hackers, and you are going to be secretly drafting these cards and passing them on. And eventually, once everybody's drafted their cards, they're going to be allocating them to these different jobs, which have different kind of requirements to fulfill them. And it has this blind bidding mechanism where you kind of secretly allocate them. And once everybody's allocated all their cards, they're going to be revealed. And if these kind of objectives have been met by all the players as a kind of community, then whoever's contributed is going to get the reward from that particular job. But there's a cool twist on that part alone, is that you can really kind of invest in getting a job done by yourself to ensure that you get the rewards. Or you can piggyback on other people investing by just maybe contributing 1 card and getting a bunch of loot that way. So I love that idea in the first place. So that's cool in itself. But the second part of the game is where the real push your luck gets into motion, where you are constantly diving into this vault and pulling tiles out, one at a time, and you can choose to back out if things are getting a bit too heated, because there is this track where the police tokens go up, and if it reaches a certain point, then everybody still in the vault is going to get caught and have all their loot removed from them. So there's that real cool push your luck aspect where you want to keep egging people to go in and getting more and more loot, and hopefully try and bluff them into staying in while you back out and get them caught by the police. So it's got that kind of semi-cooperative feel there, and it works really well, and I enjoyed this one quite a bit. Got a lot of legs out of it. I think if you want a more pure push your luck game, you're probably going to want to go something a bit smaller. But if you want something that does the card drafting and push your luck, then The Big Score does a great job of that. It takes about 45 minutes to play anyway, but a really solid game that I think a lot of people could enjoy if they only knew about it. So that is The Big Score at number 7. At number 6, I have Merchants of Maziris. Now, this is a game, kind of a trading game, as you're trying to buying and selling spices, something a bit like Jaipur. So if you like Jaipur, I think you're going to like Merchants of Maziris. So this one has an element of worker placement as well, as you have these bunch of different trader cards out. And all your turn is going to consist of is using one of these traders which are either going to let you kind of gather cards, they're going to let you sell cards and sets, because the idea is you're trying to get as much money as you can by selling, pairs or triples of cards. But the trick as well to this game is that the cards aren't only based on what they're worth by selling, but they also have their own unique power associated to them as well. So you've got this kind of dual use card system where you've got powerful abilities associated with the cards that are worth more, but the cards that are worth less coins are going to have weaker abilities to them as well. So you've got that balancing act there. It just flows really nicely, this one. It's got loads of replayability, because every game you're going to have a bunch of different worker placement cards out there. You've got different kind of end game scoring criteria, different end game triggers. So it's very, very modular. You can plug things in, change things, and that does add a lot of legs and mileage into the game. And in fact, I actually enjoy this game quite a bit more than Jaipur, which I know is an amazingly popular game. And I'm surprised Maziris doesn't quite, hasn't even nearly reached the popularity of Jaipura's, even though I think the gameplay is quite a bit stronger. And gorgeous production as well, looks lovely, great artwork, and just a solid game that should be looked at more. So that is Merchants of Maziris at number 6. At number 5, I have Charte. Now, Charte is a game by Reiner Knizia, who is one of the most, if not the most prolific board game designer of all time, made hundreds of classics and thousands of board games. This one is an ultra simple tile placement game for strictly 2 players, and it has a real abstract feel to it and quite a tense feel to it as well, as you have these tiles made up of these different terrain types. You've got only 2 terrain types. You've got the kind of sea area and you've got the land area, and each player is going to be kind of controlling one of those 2. And the idea is you're going to be placing these tiles out in this 3x3 grid, and trying to kind of link up the biggest mass of their depicted area as they can by the time that 9th tile is placed out. But not only can you draw out new tiles and place them onto the board, you can actually manipulate the tiles on the board by rotating them 90 degrees, which can just completely change the face of the or the state of the board. There's this constant back and forth, a real brain-burnery game, because this game is pretty much abstract. All the information is in front of you, and just knowing the right move to make can be extremely brain-racking. But I love that. It's such a clean, crisp and razor-sharp design in a tiny little box, and I love the way this game does so much with so little. So that is Charte at number 5. At number 4, I have Break the Code. Break the Code is a deduction game. I do tend to like deduction games. This one is probably one of the most mathematical examples of a deduction game that I've ever played, if not quite strongly the most mathematical one, where you are basically given a series of these numbered tiles, and everybody's given these tiles, and there's going to be a number in the centre of the table which you're trying to deduce what they're going to be by choosing, or the gameplay is going to be choosing these cards, and you're going to be asking questions based on those cards to the other players. So it might say, what do your 3 highest numbers total? What do your 3 lowest numbers total? What's the difference between your lowest number and your highest number? And as you're gaining more and more of this information, you should be able to work out what the numbers have been taken out of the game. And again, if you gravitate towards the maths or mathematics, then you are probably going to enjoy this quite a lot, and you're going to be quite a bit better than someone who isn't so, mathematic orientated like myself. I'm terrible at this game, but I appreciate how precise this game is, and you can really do a lot with a few clues if you can only understand what the information is trying to tell you. A wonderful example of deduction. It's really pure, creative. I like the way you don't actually have to ask or think of the questions yourself. You've always got a bunch of cards in the centre of the table. You just draft which card you want to ask the other players, which keeps things ticking along nicely and keeps things sped up. So yeah, a really solid game, and I think if you love your deduction games, this one is certainly one to pick up. That is Break the Code at number 4. At number 3, I have Tumble Town. Tumble Town is a game actually made by the same designer as Calico, which was a really popular game in 2020. This one again came out in 2020, but received next to no buzz. Hardly anybody backed it on Kickstarter, but this game is rock solid. It's a card drafting resource management game where your resources are essentially dice, and you're using these dice to build buildings which require certain depictions of dice on them. So it might say, in order to build this building, you need a gold die, you need a black die and a grey die, and they need to total over 14, for example. And if you do that, you're going to build that building, you're going to add it to your little town, which can give you more further bonuses, and get you points at the end of the game. It's ultra quick, ultra simple. But I love the dice manipulation that goes into this game, because you end up acquiring more and more of these cards, and the cards give you powers as well that might say, re-roll your die, or flip the die from one face to the other. Convert this die into these two other dice. So I love the different manipulation and the powers you can use. You get a little bit of an engine going. It's got a good spatial puzzle, really fast, engaging gameplay, with a low rules overhead. Almost has a nice table presence as well, because you have this blueprint of your city, and you're physically building the buildings with the dice. So you've got like one might be like a tower of 3 dice, and you stack them on top of each other and things like that. Really pleasant game, another family-orientated game that I'm a bit like Mammoth. If this game just had the right marketing, had the right artwork, this would be absolutely huge. And I think my feelings are that maybe long term, in 3 years' time or so, word will spread about how solid this game is, and it might get a new reprinting, new artwork and things, particularly as the designer is doing so well. This game is great, a really good game, and I would really endorse this one. That is Tumbletown at number 3. At number 2, I have another game from last year. This is Monasterium. Now, Monasterium is certainly the heaviest game and most involved game on this list. And to be honest, I didn't put this one at number 1, despite this one being my favourite game on the list, because I think there's still time for this one to take off. It only came out last year. It had a relatively big publisher by DLP Games, I believe. And so, as I said, there is time for this one to take off, gain a bit of momentum, and it could be a bit of a slow burner, and I could end up eating my words on this one being a hidden gem. But I love this game. It is a game where you are rolling dice, and you are allocating those dice on these different spots on the board. And as you are allocating these dice, everybody's doing the same thing. And once they're all allocated, you are choosing or drafting those dice from those spots to take certain actions, which are kind of travelling along this board and visiting these different churches. You are sending people off to worship in these churches. You're trying to collect these different stained glass windows for your board. You are investing in your board to get more actions from the different drafting spots. Lots of Euro goodness in this game. And the reason why it's on this list is because it has a very few owners. Didn't come out to any fanfare whatsoever, and I'm just surprised about that, because it has a lot of things that people like. People love Euro games that have a core mechanism involving dice. It has a good amount of set collection. It's got variable goals that you're trying to go for. Looks really nice. It has a classic Euro feel to it. It ticks all the boxes for me personally, and I'm hoping that it will eventually get out there. People will start to appreciate what this game brings to the table, because it is fantastic. So that is Monasterium at number 2. And finally, the game at number 1 is Xi'an, the Terracotta Army. This one is a game that has very few owners on Board Game Geek. It only has 800, which baffles me. This game is a really interesting game with some great table presence, actually, because you have all these different kind of terracotta statues which you can end up painting your own colour and transforming it into your own player colour. And the idea is you are trying to put as many of these statues out, not only to get initial bonuses, but then you're painting them your colour by collecting these pigments for area majorities as well. And on top of that, you've got some set collections. You're trying to collect all these different weapons. But the thing I really took away from this game is the card system, because you're going to have a deck of cards, and everybody starts with an identical deck, and each from round to round you're going to be drawing 4 cards, and you're going to be putting them in 2 pairs of 2. And the anatomy of those cards is interesting, because not only does it have a number on them which kind of dictates your initiative, in other words, who's going to go first in the turn by playing the highest number, but it also shows the action you're going to get as well. So you're putting these cards together where, do I want to be the first to do this action, or do I want to use the powerful action of that number one and use the initiative of another card? See, that idea process is really important, because being first player is paramount to get the worker placement spots that you want, because there are only 4 worker placement spots anyway, and you can't share the same spot as someone else. And it's a real tight and precise and concise game that has a lot going on in it, while still being extremely digestible, having interesting decisions, really clean mechanisms. You've got a track you can go down and get bonuses, simple area majorities, managing your resources, trying to collect brick to build the statues in the first place, trying to collect the pigments to paint them your colour, trying to collect the artifacts to to decorate your statues to get end game set collection bonuses. Ticks all the boxes for an entry level Euro game. And games like Lords of Waterdeep, games like Stone Age, they just seem to be consistently popular. There's worker placement games, and for me, Xi'an is better than both of those games, and nobody talks about it. It looks good, not the best of component qualities, but it's good enough. Get innovative mechanisms that do things unlike anything else, but still some familiar mechanisms as well. I said the worker placement's good, the hand management is excellent. I love this one. It's a real solid game, and probably the perfect example of a hidden gem that I've ever played, because nobody talks about this, and I just do not know why, because it is just perfectly solid. There's nothing wrong with this game whatsoever. There's multiple paths to victory. The decisions are interesting, because some of these cards you can play early and end up getting kind of bonuses as you go throughout the game. So you've got a bit of an engine there, or you can play those cards later and just take them for a bunch of points. Again, I could talk about this game for ages, but I would highly recommend checking this one out if you do like your lighter end of the scale Euro games. This one is one of the best examples of that. So that concludes my top 10 hidden gems. If you have enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. Also, if you are really supportive of the show, I'd really appreciate it if you would check out my Patreon page, where you can support the show for as little as £2 a month. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.